Aksel blinked. There it was again, a smear, faint but undeniable, just inside the skin of the vessel. He rubbed his eyes, but it didn't go away. He had never seen anything like it before. "Query?" he asked, feeling uncertain. "What am I looking at?" "Bulkhead," the vessel responded. Aksel shook his head. "No, something else. There's something there, something more." He tried to touch it, but the straps holding him to his chair wouldn't allow it. The voice of the vessel kept insisting, "Bulkhead, just the bulkhead." But Aksel was certain. There was something between him and the wall. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was seeing something he wasn't supposed to. What was he seeing? The voice? Was it deliberately avoiding the truth? Aksel had been alone for a long time, longer than he could remember. The vessel had accelerated over days, slowly pushing his body to its limits without killing him. Now, the chair he sat in was no longer just a chair. It had become part of him, integrated into his flesh, making it hard for him to tell where his body ended and the machine began. When he woke, the vessel displayed the time until deceleration. Months, days, even seconds ticking away. Why was he awake? He wasn't supposed to be. He was meant to be in storage, asleep for the entirety of the trip. "Why am I awake?" he whispered. The vessel responded, "Unexpected failure in storage system." But it offered no comfort, no explanation he could understand. It simply kept him alive, feeding him through the chair, his muscles twitching and jerking. Yet it wasn't his own body that moved. Aksel was trapped in a body that was slowly wasting away, and the vessel was all he had to speak to. The voice appeared after weeks of isolation. It wasn't the vessel's usual monotone. It was something else. At first, Aksel wasn't sure if he was imagining it, but he could sense it, like a presence just beyond the range of hearing. He spoke to it, tried to coax it into responding. And then it did. It had rules, patterns of speech, formulas that needed to be followed, or it wouldn't answer. Aksel found himself speaking to it more and more, yet the more he spoke, the less he understood. What was this voice? It didn't feel like the vessel. Was it inside his mind, or something else entirely? The voice seemed to know what he was thinking, answering questions he hadn't even asked out loud. It was there, always there. One day, Aksel asked the vessel to remove his helmet. The chrome claw extended from the bulkhead, plucking the helmet from his head. He looked again, and the smear was still there. He focused on it, fixed his gaze without blinking. There, in front of the bulkhead, it hovered. No matter how the vessel tried to deny it, Aksel was certain something was there. A semi-transparent shape, almost like a face. Maybe it was his mind playing tricks. Or maybe the voice was showing him something he wasn't ready to see. "Query," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "What am I looking at?" But the vessel was silent. Time passed. Weeks, maybe months. His body had grown weak, gaunt, almost skeletal, but the smear remained, and it had changed. Now, when he looked at it, it seemed more like a face, his own face. With immense effort, he freed himself from the chair, crawling toward the smear. It took all his strength, but he had to see it, up close. When he reached the bulkhead, he looked again, and there it was, a face, his own face, distorted but unmistakable. And then it smiled, a smile that stretched too wide, revealing something inside, something that wasn't teeth. They found him days later. The rescue team boarded the craft, finding Aksel's body torn from the chair, his desiccated form tangled in wires. His eyes were open, staring at the bulkhead where he had seen the smear. They looked at each other, confused. His suit was gone, and his arm, twisted, unrecognizable. One of the technicians moved closer to the bulkhead, reaching out. For a moment he thought he saw something, just a flicker, a smear. His faceplate must have been dirty, he thought. But as he stood there, his hand hovering, he felt something, a presence, watching him. And then he thought, "Query, what am I looking at?" As the story closes, we're left with more questions than answers. Aksel's journey through the cold void of space becomes less about survival and more about a descent into his own mind. The smear, the voice, and the eerie silence of the vessel create a disturbing but captivating atmosphere. A world where the boundaries between reality and hallucination blur. What did Aksel truly see? Was it a trick of his mind, or was something lurking just beyond his perception? This story is a deep exploration of isolation and the fragility of the human mind when faced with the unknown. It makes us wonder, how much of what we see is real, and how much is shaped by our own fears? In the end, Aksel's reality becomes twisted and unrecognizable, leaving us pondering our own perceptions and the vast, often incomprehensible nature of the universe. If this story gripped you as much as it did us, be sure to leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more mind-bending tales like this. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story. Stay curious, stay adventurous.